They're really trying to make you believe the WNBA just suspended Caitlin Clark. Not fined, not warned, suspended. And the wild part is how fast people bought it. Because the second you see that headline, your brain fills in the blanks. You imagine the clip. You imagine the moment. You imagine the league office panicking, trying to send a message. And you imagine Aya Wilson standing right in the middle of it, like the final boss of the whole controversy. But here's the problem. When you actually slow down and look for the official proof, the story starts falling apart. And what's left behind is way more interesting than a simple heated exchange. Because this isn't just about whether Caitlin Clark got suspended. It's about why millions of people were ready to believe she did. And what that says about the WNBA right now. At the exact moment, it's getting bigger than it's ever been. But that wasn't the whole story. Because the suspension rumor didn't explode out of nowhere. It exploded out of a perfect storm. Here's how this usually goes. A dramatic thumbnail drops. The title says breaking, or 2 minutes ago. The video opens with urgency, but somehow it never shows a real document. No official statement. No verified league memo. No clear quote from the WNBA's disciplinary office. Just a loop of the same handful of clips, stitched together with a confident voice and a storyline that feels so believable you don't even notice what's missing. And when the story is Caitlin Clark, someone who pulls intense attention, intense criticism, and intense engagement, people don't even need evidence. They need a vibe. They need a narrative that matches what they already feel. But if we're being real, there's no credible, official announcement that the WNBA suspended Caitlin Clark because of Aya Wilson. What is real is the bigger tension underneath. The league's biggest spotlight in decades has come with the league's biggest identity fight in decades. And Caitlin Clark didn't create that fight. She just became the mirror that forced everybody to look at it. And once that mirror showed up, every single normal basketball moment started getting treated like a political event. Every stare, every hard foul, every quote, every award, everything turned into proof for one side or the other. So if the suspension isn't the real story, why did it feel so real? Because the ingredients were already there. And the match that lit it was the Clark versus Wilson conversation that never really stopped burning. And what happened next pulled the whole league into a debate that wasn't even about basketball anymore. If you've been watching this play out, you already know the script social media wants. They want Caitlin Clark cast as the unstoppable engine of the WNBA's new era. And they want Aya Wilson cast as the gatekeeper of the old guard. The legend who refuses to let the league's history get wiped away. And in reality, both of those ideas contain a piece of the truth. Caitlin Clark's popularity brought in eyeballs that the league has chased for years. That's not a moral statement. That's not an insult to anyone. That's just how modern sports attention works. At the same time, Aya Wilson's resume is not a debate topic. She didn't become Aya Wilson because the internet handed her a storyline. She became Aya Wilson by being dominant, consistent, and relentless, season after season. In 2025, Wilson stacked honors that only a handful of athletes in any sport can relate to, and she was recognized as Time's Athlete of the Year Time, while also earning the AP Female Athlete of the Year AP News. That's not hype. That's history. So why did it still feel like a fight? Because the conversation wasn't, is Aya great? Everybody knows she's great. The conversation became, who deserves the credit for the league's rise? That's where it gets toxic. Because credit sounds harmless, until you realize credit turns into power. It turns into endorsement leverage. It turns into media focus. It turns into whose voice gets amplified, and whose achievements get treated like background noise. And once people start fighting over credit, they start rewriting the past. One side acts like the WNBA didn't matter until Clark showed up. The other side acts like Clark is just a temporary spike, and the growth would have happened anyway. Both positions are emotionally satisfying. Both positions are incomplete. And that's why the internet needs a villain. It needs a moment. It needs a punishment. Something clean, something dramatic, something you can summarize in one sentence. So when a fake suspension rumor appears, it doesn't need to be proven. It just needs to fit. But if you want to understand why this is happening, you don't start with feelings. You start with numbers. Because the numbers are exactly where this story turns from basketball drama into business war. And once you see that, you'll understand why every quote suddenly sounds like a threat. The WNBA is heading into a new era of media money, real money. The league announced landmark long-term media rights agreements that begin with the 2026 season. WNBA.com, widely described as a massive package valued in the billions over more than a decade. Genius Sports. That matters because sports leagues don't get paid based on vibes. They get paid based on attention, consistency, and leverage. And in the last few years, the WNBA has been building something powerful, a product that's finally breaking through to bigger mainstream conversations more often. But here's the uncomfortable truth about mainstream attention. Mainstream attention is not fair. It doesn't distribute itself evenly across every deserving player. It doesn't pause to appreciate history the way longtime fans do. It follows the brightest spotlight. And Caitlin Clark is a spotlight magnet. The kind that changes the way networks talk, the way casual fans tune in, the way debate shows frame the league, the way every opposing arena treats one game like a playoff event. That doesn't erase the legends. It doesn't cancel the foundation. But it does create resentment, especially when people feel like the story is being told about them without them being able to control it. And then 2025 happened. And Clark's season didn't just bring debate. It brought absence. Because her year got hit by injuries, and the Fever had to keep moving while one of the league's biggest attention engines was suddenly not on the floor. The team announced a quad injury in late May 2025. Fever.WNBA.com. Later, the Fever announced Clark would miss the remainder of the 2025 season after being sidelined since a right groin injury in mid-July, finishing the year having appeared in 13 games. Fever.WNBA.com. And you might think that would cool things down, but it did the opposite. Because when the star is gone, the basketball world doesn't get quieter. It gets weirder. And what happened next is exactly why the suspension rumor felt believable, because the gap she left behind got filled with something else. It got filled with narratives. When a superstar goes down, there's always a vacuum. And nature hates a vacuum. So does sports media. So does social media. So does the entire online ecosystem built to turn every sports season into a 24/7 storyline. Clark missing time didn't end the arguments. It made the arguments mutate. Now people weren't just debating her talent. They were debating her value. They were debating what counts as real impact. They were debating whether her attention was earned, whether it was manufactured, whether it was good for the league, whether it was harmful to the league's history. And here's the trap. Once you put those questions on the table, no answer makes everyone happy. If you praise Clark's impact, some people hear, the WNBA didn't matter before her. If you praise the league's foundation, some people hear, Clark didn't matter as much as you think. So instead of balance, the internet chooses teams. And once teams form, every interaction becomes evidence. Every quote becomes a headline. Every side-eye becomes a heated exchange. Every tough matchup becomes personal. That's why it's so easy for clickbait to win. It doesn't need to invent a whole new story. It just needs to exaggerate what already exists. And with Clark out for much of the season, the league's conversation shifted. People looked for the next spark. They found it in Aya Wilson's moment. Because while Clark's season was dealing with setbacks, Aya Wilson's 2025 season was doing the opposite. It was stacking trophies and forcing the world to look. And that's where the tension became unavoidable. Let's be clear, Aya Wilson didn't need Caitlin Clark to become Aya Wilson. She became a 4-time WNBA MVP, something no one else has done. ESPN.com. She was recognized for an absurdly dominant 2025 that included leading the league in scoring and blocks, and she earned the AP Female Athlete of the Year AP News. Time also named her Athlete of the Year Time. That's not narrative. That's production. But here's what makes it messy. Two truths can exist at the same time. Truth number one, Aya Wilson is an all-time great, building a GOAT-level resume in real time. Truth number two, Caitlin Clark brought a wave of casual attention that changed the conversation around the entire league. Those truths aren't enemies. But online, they're treated like enemies because conflict gets clicks. So IRS interviews, IRS awards, IRS dominance. Those became the perfect stage for fans to argue about Clark again, even when Clark wasn't even playing. And once the conversation turns into either slash or, it stops being respectful debate and starts turning into identity warfare. Now it's not who had the better season. Now it's who represents the league. Now it's who deserves the credit. Now it's who's being disrespected. And once it becomes that, the worst people on the internet show up because they smell blood in the water. They take the most sensitive parts of the discussion, race, recognition, ownership of history, the media's role, and they twist it into something uglier, louder, and more divisive than it ever needed to be. Then, on top of that, you get the content machine. Channels and pages that don't care who gets hurt as long as the view count goes up. So they don't just say controversy. They say war. They don't just say debate. They say exposed. They don't just say tension. They say suspended. And the audience clicks, because at this point, everyone's already emotionally invested. But here's the part people don't want to admit. The internet doesn't just report drama. It manufactures it. And once it manufactures it, it starts pressuring the league itself, because the league can't escape the noise anymore. And what happened next is why 2026 is going to feel like a courtroom, not just a season. If you want to understand why these stories keep popping up, look at what they all have in common. They take something real, an award, a quote, a hard foul, a rivalry matchup, and then they push it one step further than reality. Not enough to be instantly dismissed, just enough to be explosive. That's why Clark and Wilson had tension becomes heated exchange. That's why fans argued about credit becomes WNBA civil war. That's why people criticize the league becomes the league is targeting her. And that's why Clark missed time becomes the league moved on without her, even when she's still the center of attention. It's like the story never ends because it's not designed to end. It's designed to keep you watching. And here's the scariest part. It works because the WNBA is finally big enough for the drama economy to treat it like the NBA. That sounds like a compliment, but it also means the league is entering the phase where attention comes with a tax. The tax is misinformation. The tax is constant outrage. The tax is every player being turned into a symbol, whether they want it or not. And Caitlin Clark is the easiest symbol. Aya Wilson is the strongest symbol. So the machine keeps smashing them together, over and over, because it's the quickest way to spark debate. But the league is about to hit a crossroads that makes this way more serious than fan arguments. Because the money is getting bigger, the spotlight is getting hotter, and the next era is going to force people to choose how they want to move. The WNBA's 2026 season is sitting there like a countdown clock. New era of media attention, bigger distribution, bigger expectations, and a league that now has to prove the surge is sustainable, not just a moment. The media rights agreements beginning in 2026 are a major signal of that new phase WNBA.com+1. Now imagine what happens when Clark is healthy again. The Fever are back in the spotlight, and the league is trying to present itself as unified and growing. Every storyline will get louder. Every rivalry will get sharper. Every quote will get clipped into a weapon. And the suspension rumor, whether it came from clout-chasing accounts or lazy content farms, is basically a preview of the chaos. Because if the audience can be convinced a suspension happened without proof, then the next wave of misinformation will be even easier to sell. And the league will be stuck responding to narratives it didn't create. Here's the reality no one wants to say out loud. The WNBA is in a rare moment where it can honor its history and embrace its future at the same time. It can celebrate legends and new stars. It can give Aya Wilson the flowers she earned through domination. And it can acknowledge that Caitlin Clark brought in new eyeballs that changed the business conversation. That's not disrespect. That's accuracy. But accuracy is not what the outrage machine rewards. So the question becomes, who controls the story? Is it the players? Is it the league? Is it the media? Or is it the loudest people online who can turn anything into a breaking emergency? Because if it's the last one, you're going to keep seeing these fake suspension headlines. You're going to keep seeing banned, canceled, forced out, league targeting her, league protecting her, all of it forever. And that's why the most important thing isn't whether you like Clark more or Wilson more. The most important thing is whether you can recognize when you're being played. Because the headline is bait, but the fight underneath it, that part is real. The league is growing. The money is growing. The attention is growing. And when that happens, everyone starts fighting over who gets to claim they built it. So here's the question I want you to sit with. If a fake suspension rumor can go viral this easily, what happens when the league hits its biggest season ever and the stakes get even higher? Who do you think the internet is going to target next? And who benefits every time the WNBA looks like it's tearing itself apart? If you want more breakdowns like this, where we cut through the loud headlines and get to what's actually driving the story, make sure you subscribe right now, because the next WNBA season is going to be a movie, and you do not want to miss what happens next.